My guess is that you've seen video clips of a NASCAR or some other car race where the car gets in a crash and goes airborne and then hits the track and flips over, and you can't look away. You're fascinated. You may say a prayer, "Oh, I hope he's okay." But from the comfort of our easy chair, we watch. Now, imagine you're a passenger in that car. My guess is you're gonna close your eyes and say, "Oh, Jesus, this isn't happening." Denial is a very strong human emotion. We want to avoid the hard realities in our life. We want to look away. Today, I think we're faced with two realities that we may not want to look at. The first, of course, is the pandemic. There's a lot of people who, including, me, just wish it would go away. But it doesn't. And some people act like it has. Despite the fact that there are 250,000 and more people dead, despite the fact the infection rate climbs, people don't do the simplest things to protect themselves and others, like wear a mask. They want to deny reality. Now, I know what that's like. A lot of people's response is to drink, to drug, to overeat, to do anything to distract themselves. But as we learned in the movie Animal House, fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life. Now, I don't say that to shame anybody, but as a caution to myself, because I know that's the way I can go. I would rather avoid reality. But we can't. The other reality that's tough to face is the final judgment. That's what we hear about in our gospel reading, when the nations are gathered at the end of time and the Good Shepherd makes the judgment. Now, we can think about that as our own individual judgment when we die. And what will we be judged on? Well, not how sleek your wardrobe is or how strong your resume is. Ezekiel condemns the sleek and the strong, and he's not talking about people who go to the gym all the time. He's talking about the leaders who grow more powerful as their people slip deeper into poverty. He's talking about selfish leaders. Rather, what we are judged on is our charity. Did we feed the hungry, give drink to the thirsty, clothe the naked? When somebody was sick, did we visit or call them? When somebody was in prison, did we do something to show that we care about them? These basic acts of charity to the Catholic ear should call forth the corporal works of mercy, and we can each judge ourselves, how well am I doing loving my neighbor as I love myself? We can ask that question about ourselves, and that's what this gospel is intended to do, to remind us what's most important. Now, applying the rule of charity to our lives is what we can do. But the final judgment, Jesus gathers the nations. It's how have nations treated their citizens? How have nations applied the law of charity to each other? And that's a bigger question. And that's the question that Pope Francis has addressed in his latest encyclical. Last month on the feast of St. Francis of Assisi, he offered the world this encyclical, Fratelli Tutti. It's a phrase from St. Francis. And what the Pope does is he references St. Francis and how St. Francis came to live in peace with himself and in harmony with his neighbor, and offer him as an example of how nations are to do that. In this encyclical, he offers a vision of how the world can be a better place, how nations can be governed for the sake of the common good. In the first chapter of the encyclical, he gives us a compendium of problems. He goes through all the problems that the world faces, starting with COVID-19, and then talking about everything from the refugee crisis to war and the death penalty and sex trafficking and slavery and abortion. He goes through all the problems of the world. And then in the next 7 chapters, he offers a solution. The second chapter is a meditation on the parable of the Good Samaritan, and basically the Pope is saying our world is like that man who's been mugged by the side of the road. Our world is in trouble, and we have to do something. Are we going to be like the priest and the Levite, the sleek and the strong, who just walk by and do nothing? Or are we going to be like the Good Samaritan that stops, pays attention, makes a sacrifice, does something to help? So the Pope then goes on, and chapter 5 is called A Better Kind of Politics. And don't we need a better kind of politics? He goes on to give us a vision of how nations can relate to each other, how nations can be governed, so that people work together in solidarity for the common good. So I commend it to your reading. I know it's for sale in our bookstore. You can find it on the Vatican website. And if you don't want to read the whole thing, there are summaries online. But what's important to me is that as a leader, as a good shepherd, the Pope is giving us a vision of another way we can be and how the world can come together to address these global issues like climate change and the refugee crisis. So now let me conclude by coming back to our feast of Christ the King and looking forward to our national feast of Thanksgiving. What we hear in Ezekiel and in the Psalm is that we have a leader who is not a tyrant looking to catch us in a crime and send us to jail. We have a shepherd. We have somebody who cares about us. We have somebody who wants the best for us. We have somebody that's going to lead us through the dark valley to a place of light. Somebody who's going to be our coolness in the heat. Somebody who's going to offer us a protective shadow to live under. Offer us strength when we feel like we can't go on. Offer us resilience when we want to give up. Christ is that leader who gives us a better vision of how we as individuals and as nations can love our neighbor as ourselves.